Some cars are big, some are small, some are red or blue or black, and some are yellow. All cars are different, but not all are beautiful. These are the strangest cars ever made. Number 20. Homemade motorhome. Fans of Top Gear are no strangers to the wacky hijinks that they do on their show, and one of the most wacky episodes is where the boys have a challenge to see who can come up with the swankiest motorhome. Needless to say, the results were very entertaining and were without a doubt some of the strangest and also coolest motorhomes ever made. Jeremy Clarkson's homemade camper, also known as the Leaning Tower of Citroen on the show, was a 3-story motorhome that he built and created himself. His motorhome included culinary amenities on the bottom level, which featured a toaster and a grill as per challenge guidelines. And on the top floor there were 2 hammocks, and on the intermediate level there was a Japanese contemplation space. For better access, Jeremy even built a ladder between the levels. Richard's, on the other hand, was a more straightforward RV-style camper. So in my book, Jeremy definitely won the challenge, and he really went all out to create a camper that was original and totally strange. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 19. A banana car. Don't get me wrong, I love bananas as much as the next guy, but building a car that's shaped like one, that's what I call pure banana love. Not only is it crazy weird that somebody constructed a car like this, but the sheer size of it is so awe-inspiring. It's not just some little banana car, it's a really big banana car. Steve Braithwaite, a British native, began building the one-of-a-kind Big Banana car in 2009, an endeavor that took him until 2011 to complete, and it became the world's longest banana vehicle that was based on a 1993 Ford F-150 pickup truck. Made out of reinforced steel bars, chicken wire, and polyurethane foam that was molded, coated, and painted to resemble the fruit. The vehicle features a V8 engine that achieves approximately 15 miles per gallon, propelling the banana at a road maximum of 85 miles per hour. It costs about $25,000 and has been driven all over the United States from coast to coast. That's not bad for a vehicle that's shaped like a banana. Number 18. Shed on wheels. There are a lot of cool things that you can break a speed record in, like a rocket car, an F1 racer, and even a banana car. But a shed? That's definitely not something that you hear every day. And yet this man in the UK seems to have done this thing that no one else thought to do, or even cared enough to do. He set a land speed record for the fastest shed. On a beach in Wales, this modified and motorized shed set a new land speed record reaching 100 miles per hour. Breaking the previous record of 80 miles per hour, which is probably a whole lot cooler than it sounds. The owner, Kevin Nix, described hitting 101 miles per hour in the world's first road-legal motorized shed as being marvelous. He spent almost 13,000 pounds building his custom shed on wheels, which now has a turbocharged 400 horsepower engine that outperforms many sports cars. Even with all this impressive engineering, the vehicle is still a shed, which isn't exactly the sexiest thing in the world. But still, this is a list of strange cars, and this, without a doubt, is very strange. Number 17. Messerschmitt KR200 2-seat opening top. Europe really does love their tiny little cars, and back in the mid-1950s, up until the 60s, these little guys were all the rage, from Germany all the way down to Italy. These days, you could say that the smart car is the closest relative to this little vehicle, but even so, our modern smart cars are no match for the strangeness of the Messerschmitt. Following Germany's loss of World War II, the German aviation company Messerschmitt was temporarily barred from manufacturing aircraft. Fritz Fend, a designer and engineer, searched for new products for the business to make, and that's how this vehicle would be born. It would be manufactured from 1955 until 1964 in a renovated facility, costing about 2,500 Deutsche Marks, and sold almost 12,000 units within its first year of manufacture. Tandem seating would be used to create the small body and minimal frontal area, as well as allowing the body to taper like an airplane fuselage within a feasible length. It was also centered on the car's mass along the longitudinal axis, which, when coupled with the KR200's low center of gravity, lightweight, and wheel placement at the vehicle's extremities, gave it excellent handling. Number 16. Amphicar Model 770. Amphibious vehicles have been a part of militaries all over the world for decades, and for those of you who don't know what it is, it's basically a vehicle that's able to go from land to water and vice versa. Armies use these vehicles to transport troops and equipment from their ships to dry land, and they've been replaced with hovercrafts in the recent years. But what about a version for civilians? Well, as it turns out, Quant Group, a German firm, attempted to engineer something in 1961, and with that, they created an amphicar, as the marketing name would suggest, but it didn't have much success at the time. The Amphicar Model 700 debuted at the New York Auto Show in 1961 and would be produced until 1967 in West Germany, selling in the United States. After poor sales, production would be halted, though initial sales projections were about 20,000 units per year. When it did end, only about 4,000 units had been made, mainly for American customers. The Amphicar would be built by the Quant Group and had low performance numbers to boot. On the road, it barely got up to 70 miles per hour and would reach 7 knots on the sea. It was the fastest car on water and the fastest boat on the road, according to its owners, and judging from all of that, it seems like a resounding failure. Number 15. The Limo Jet. Pulling up in your own private aircraft says it all. Congratulations, you've made it. However, this private aircraft that has been transformed into a 42-foot-long road-going limousine may be a close second. This one-of-a-kind bespoke construct, appropriately called the Limo Jet, comes with a 17,000-watt music system, an infinite mirror floor, and seating for 18. The Limo Jet made news in 2018 when it was eventually finished following a 12-year construction process, and though some limousines are thrown together like Frankenstein projects, the pictures show that this Limo Jet was built with a lot of skill and care. The aluminum fuselage of a genuine Learjet aircraft is supported by a steel tube frame chassis that sits on a sophisticated pushrod suspension. A rear-mounted 8.1-liter Chevrolet Vortec V8 powers the entire thing. A pair of modified 6-spoke 28-inch Diablo wheels would be selected to fit the size of the huge vehicle, painted black with dark candy red highlights to match the exterior color. Instead of the Learjet's 2 turbofan engines, the place where they would be is home to a pair of massive speakers that can blast jet engine noise effects while flying down the street. There are additional speakers in the tail portion as well that fold down and retract flush with the body. Number 14. Cadillac Eldorado, the longest limousine in the world. This Caddy was designed and built by Jay Orber, a world-renowned custom vehicle expert, and is 30.5 meters in length with a mind-boggling total of 26 wheels. Consider this, a normal semi-trailer is often equipped with just 16 wheels. On top of all this, it came with a swimming pool, a jacuzzi, a helicopter landing pad, an enormous waterbed, and even more strange, 2 separate cabins for its 2 drivers, one in the front and the other in the back. The driver in the back is tasked with controlling and steering the rear wheels when the big old limo is reversing or turning into a curve because, let's face it, this thing's just too big to turn on its own. That's what I call a backseat driver. The whole second driver thing is possible because of a hinge in the middle of the limousine, which allows it to bend its way around corners. According to accounts, it was never road legal and had to be transported around on a trailer since it spent most of its existence as a show car rather than a working vehicle. It would later be abandoned in a warehouse in New Jersey before being discovered in a state of disrepair in the early part of this decade. Fortunately, it was purchased by the Automotive Teaching Museum in New York, where it will be utilized as a study piece for students who have a love for vehicle design and customization in general. Number 13. The 1929 rocket car. Rocketeers had their heyday in the 1920s when they could connect rockets to almost anything, and Max Valier, an Austrian space travel advocate, invented everything from rocket-powered sleds and boats to rocket-propelled train carriages and the world's first rocket aircraft. His work would result in the genuine advances in rocketry as well as popular acceptance and support for space travel. The vehicle must have been a terrifying sight on the back roads of rural New York, made mostly of cardboard and linoleum with a 1921 Chevy chassis and a pair of gasoline-burning rocket engines. The use of lightweight construction materials was a safety concern, and surprisingly, they were able to register and license the device in the state of New York. The rocket car miraculously survived its first test and is now on display at the New York State Museum in Albany. It would be recovered from the inventor's backyard in the 1960s, repaired, and then placed in the museum, where it's still on display today. Number 12. The Nautilus car. Some television and movie vehicles are simple to recreate. If you add a 01, a push bar, and stars and bars to your orange 1969 Dodge Charger, you'll be 90% of the way to a General Lee. Others require careful attention to detail and the acquisition of certain difficult-to-find components. Ken Freeman's built-from-scratch copy of the Nemo vehicle from the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which took him almost 5 years to complete and will be unveiled next month, is another example. The four-door, six-wheeled, fiberglass-bodied, 22-foot-long Nemo car was built on a Land Rover Fire Tender chassis with an extra axle up front and a Land Rover V8 engine for power, along with a removable hardtop. An elaborate Hindu decoration, particularly on the front, was designed by Carol Spire, who also penned Captain Nemo's Nautilus for the movie. The studio allegedly constructed two for the project, one of which would be outfitted with elaborate rigging for inside shots. Number 11. The Honda Fuya Joe. Japan has a long history of producing fantastic concept automobiles, and it often takes chances when designing these unique vehicles, sometimes in an attempt to tap into more specialized markets. The biannual Tokyo Motor Show also has a long history of showcasing these odd and quirky vehicles, even if some of them don't really add up in the logic department. The Honda Fuya Joe, which debuted at the Tokyo Motor Show in '99, was an example of a daring idea. It was intended to cater to the partying young demographic, and its name literally means sleepless city. People out partying would even be able to continue to enjoy the uninterrupted nightlife experience, even while being carried to their next location. The vehicle looks like a toaster on wheels, seems to be part of a giant Lego set, but the design was specifically created to enable passengers to stand up straight and dance their way to their next party spot. The whole inside of the unusual vehicle is designed to resemble a nightclub, with everything following a specific dance club theme. The steering wheel's fashioned like a turntable, while the dashboard resembles a DJ's mixing desk. The concept car, like many other unique vehicle ideas, would be driven by an eco-friendly hybrid powertrain and was undeniably attractive. However, it, like many other unusual vehicle designs, was just not feasible enough to bring into production, so the car danced its way into motor vehicle heaven. Number 10. Pink Panther Mobile. It's made us laugh, kept us wondering, and kept audiences engaged for almost half a century with its unrivaled wit and humor. The Pink Panther series, which debuted in 1963, has subsequently been turned into a variety of films, television shows, and animated themes, making it a legend in the realm of detective humor across many media. The Panther Mobile was a one-of-a-kind vehicle that was extensively modified for the show, which broadcast on NBC in the United States from 1969 to 1976. The vehicle was designed by Jay Orberg, the same guy behind the most innovative movie car ideas, which included the Batmobile, Knight Rider's kit, and the DeLorean from the Back to the Future trilogy. The vehicle itself, of course, was of different hues of pink inside and out, and was a staggering 23 feet long. A 6-7-liter engine, and then something sensual dubbed the pleasure capsule are hidden underneath the pink cockpit of the vehicle. This section of the Panther Mobile lives true to its name, featuring a bar, pink satin upholstery, pink shag carpet, an old-school pink push-button phone, and chairs that are already reclined. It also included a small black and white television and a camera that enabled the driver to keep an eye on the party in the rear. Number 9. The City Car. The Sebring Vanguard City Car was a battery-powered two-passenger car that caught the interest of America for a brief moment of history. From 1974 until 1982, this cheese wedge-shaped shoebox on wheels was connected into the nation's electrical system. It's difficult to tell if it was a daring vision of the future or a half-baked pipe dream that was built on outdated technology. In any case, the City Car represents an essential but frequently overlooked stepping stone in the electric vehicle's developmental territory. The City Car SV48 would be launched in 1974, and the car's range and maximum speed were both increased by adding 2 additional batteries. But it was presumably an either-or situation. City cars had really gotten rather attractive by 1976 and were known as the hatchback coupe, having actual doors rather than plastic curtains, a hatch to reach the rear storage shelf, and a new 6.5 horsepower engine. By 1977, the City Van, a somewhat longer variant, would be introduced, but it was too late for Sebring Vanguard. Despite these advancements, motor and battery technology remained largely unchanged for 75 years, and the car went kaput. Though this car may not be the most attractive attractive or well-developed in history, it sure influenced a lot of how we view electric cars today, and even influenced the man himself, Elon Musk. Number 8. Fiat 600 Multipla. While some collectors are more concentrated on muscle cars or sports cars, others have found a home in the vintage vans of the world. One of the original and most strange of them all, the Fiat 600 Multipla. The Fiat 600 Multipla was a 4-door family van with a powertrain based on the Fiat 600 and front suspensions based on the Fiat 1100. The van could seat up to 6 people in a footprint that was just 50 centimeters longer than the original Mini Cooper and shared the Fiat 600 saloon's 2-meter wheelbase. The driver's compartment was moved forward over the front axle, essentially removing the boot, but giving the body a minivan-like one-box flat front appearance. The vehicle would make its premiere in January of 1956 at the Brussels Motor Show, and the Fiat Multipla compact minivan would be relaunched as the Multipla in late 1998. Number 7. Zombie Fighting Maybach Exelero. Have you ever dreamt about what kind of car you would want during the zombie apocalypse? Well, dream no more, because some guy in Jordan took the Maybach design that was scrapped in 2005 and actually went through with it. The result is nothing short of exactly what you would need to fight off a huge horde of zombies. Even though it was just a prototype, the 2005 Maybach Exelero drew a lot of interest from car aficionados. The 2-door vehicle is equipped with a huge V12 engine that produces 700 horsepower, making it ideal for escaping the apocalypse. It's been extensively modified to survive post-apocalyptic warfare, everything from tank-inspired tracks on the back wheels to heavy armor plates protecting the passenger compartment, and a multifunctional bull bar up front that's included with the equipment. What would a zombie apocalypse vehicle be without guns, though? Of course, the Maybach features a gun protruding from the bonnet, twin machine guns in the back, and a rocket launcher. What more could you possibly want? While it may not be the most practical vehicle for battling zombies, that V12 does consume a lot of petrol. It certainly looks the part. Number 6. Simca Folger 1958 Concept Car. Now I know when you look back on how the people perceive the year 2021, it seems like we all missed the mark by a whole lot. Where are all the floating skateboards and flying cars? Things do start to get interesting when you go way back in time and see how they perceived that the future would be. And in 1958, someone went ahead and built a prototype of what they thought that cars would look like 40 years later. The Simca Folger was a concept vehicle developed by Robert Opren for Simca in 1958 and would first be shown at the Geneva Motor Show in 1959. It was also on exhibit at the New York Auto Show in '61, as well as Chicago Auto Show, and the goal of the concept was to depict what cars would look like in the year 2000. It was to be an atomic-powered, voice-controlled, radar-guided vehicle that utilized just 2 wheels to balance on gyroscopes, all while traveling at about 150 kilometers per hour. I don't think I really need to say it, but I'll say it anyways. They were way off the mark, but like a lot, which is really too bad because how cool would it have been to be driving around in things that look like this? Number 5. 1958 Survival. Forget everything that you learned from the show Leave It to Beaver. In America in the late 1950s, it was hardly a glorious era. The Soviets were always a few seconds away from annihilating the world, poisoned air was shortening your lifespan, and an ever-increasing number of speeding, seatbeltless hunks of Detroit steel made driving on our gleaming new interstate highway system pretty much the same thing as vehicular suicide. But fortunately, we had a hero in the form of the Survival, a most hideous creature to ever ride on a 4-wheeled vehicle. Survival was a cyclopean horror, but he was a cyclopean horror with the best interests at heart, not to mention the terrible use of an innocent car, the 1948 Hudson. Survival was the topic of a feature in the April 1959 edition of Mechanics Illustrated, and was designed by Walter C. Jerome of Worcester, Massachusetts. It was touted as the last word in safety cars by the magazine, which is very kind, but let's be honest, this car shouldn't survive a right-hand turn. Number 4. Jelly Beans Skate Car. Now, allow me to go back in time to the late 1970s. A guy named Larry Strickland designed and constructed the skate vehicle. Larry was a friend of the neighborhood who operated a roller skating rink, a bowling alley, and a childcare facility. His father had a fiberglass business, and back in the late 1970s, the two of them came up with the great concept of beginning to build skate vehicles. They even went as far as to make 16 of them. They used to have a tiny network of roller skating rinks throughout the state called Sports World in the 1980s. And one of the Sports World skate vehicles is currently on display at the Sparkle Skating Facility in Atlanta, Georgia. The entire inside of this unbelievable machine was powered by a Volkswagen. The engine itself is a 1600cc, and even though the vehicle was just to promote the skating rinks, I'm sure that the person who got to drive these around was the coolest guy in the neighborhood, and not a total dork at all, right? Number 3. Column Caravan. Even though campers seem cool, they can also get pretty boring after a while. I mean, it's basically just a bus with a kitchen and a bed in it, right? But what if you could shift and change the camper into different shapes depending on what you need to be doing inside of it? Fortunately, the Column Caravan was there to save the day. Christian Susanna's latest vehicle design is a wonderful mix of a car and mobile camper, and it's named Column, which is an acronym for Colors of Life in Motion. And although it's not all that attractive, it is extremely helpful considering the level of versatility that it provides. The Column Caravan idea has the big benefit of being able to remove the front portion if the house component is not in use. The living space is adaptable, with multi-function modules that may be used separately, and the motorhome, which is designed for 2 people with a maximum of 4, allows the user to customize its 4 movable walls according to their current living circumstances. This adaptability is not only confined to the living room, it's also present in the cockpit. Number 2. The 1970 Ferrari 512S Modulo. Ferraris are some of the most coveted and sought-after vehicles of the world, and for good reason. They're exquisitely made pieces of machinery. But when it comes to the design, they don't always hit the mark. Sometimes they stray a bit too much into the strange but still beautiful territory, and that's where we bring in the 1970 Ferrari 512S Modulo. The 1970 S Modulo is, and always was, a conversation starter. Its striking wedge-shaped supercar exists only to inspire, making a more rare sight than seeing a unicorn or even Bigfoot. The 512S was never intended for production, although it was a precursor of the wedge-shaped Ferraris of the 1970s and early 1980s. As a result, the 512S Modulo you see here is the only one that's still left in existence. If it was, according to reports, the Ferrari 512S Modulo won 22 international design awards, so it's clear which vehicle was the Lord of the Wedges back then. Number 1. Bluebird CN7 Classic Car. For the final car on our list, we have one that's not only strange looking, but these strange looks serve a much greater purpose. They help the car break and set land speed world records. Donald Campbell drove the Bluebird Proteus CN7 to establish a new land speed record of 403.1 miles per hour in July of 1964, making it the final wheel-driven land speed record vehicle. It was a groundbreaking vehicle with a cutting-edge aluminum honeycomb structure, a fully independent suspension, and 4-wheel drive. Campbell had a heads-up display as well. The vehicle would be powered by a 4,000 bhp Bristol Siddeley Proteus gas turbine engine and was a 2-spool reverse flow gas turbine engine that had been modified to include a drive shaft at either end of the engine, allowing fixed ratio gearboxes on each axle to be separated. It was intended to go 500 miles per hour, but due to surface conditions caused by bad weather in 1963 and 64, its fastest documented performance was almost 100 miles per hour less than its theoretical capacity. It would surpass Don Vesco's Vesco Turbinator's current record of 470.444 miles per hour that was established in 2001, and would still be the fastest wheel-driven vehicle on the road today.